On your syllabus, you'll find a list of English 220 outcomes. Let's start by discussing the first one, what it means to analyze a rhetorical situation. This process involves understanding how to create work based on the expectations and demands of the audience. In this class, every assignment assumes you are composing something for the e-journal zine, which is a real publication that you might actually want to submit your work to. One example of analyzing a rhetorical situation involves simply knowing that you're addressing artists and suggesting ways their art can be guided by understanding your side of the argument. Also, when writing on the discussion board, just knowing that your peers are familiar with the same topics and materials that you are is a form of analyzing the rhetorical situation. What you'll want to do in your reflective memo is discuss examples like these with relation to the final project that you are working on. In other words, how has your ability to analyze the rhetorical situation shaped your composition of this project? As for finding and evaluating information, we know that finding information involves processes as simple as using a search engine. We also discussed this semester that the root of the word evaluate is simply value, and that to evaluate something means simply to put a value on it. A good example of finding and evaluating information could involve using search engines which filter out low-value results, such as Google Books or Google News. It could also involve using non-filtering search engines like regular Google, but checking each result one by one for its value as a credible source. What you'll want to do in your reflective memo is discuss examples like these with relation to the final project you're working on. In other words, how has your ability to find and evaluate information shaped your composition of this project? The concept of composing documents makes much more sense when we think of the roots of the word compose. Since compose comes from a Latin word, meaning simply to put together, it simply refers to the process of putting a work together piece by piece. A good example of composing, that is, putting together, is the case of you developing your methodology section and then inserting it into your final recommendation report. By doing this, you are combining distinct parts of a project, which you even worked on at distinct times during the course of the semester. What you'll want to do in your reflective memo is discuss examples like these with relation to the final project that you're working on. In other words, how has your evolving ability to compose, that is, put together, affected the shape of your final project? As far as presenting documents goes, this is pretty straightforward. As you've probably guessed, it refers in part to the presentational quality of your composition, but it also refers to the presentational type. One example of presenting work is the use of blog style with your précis and analytical report, as well as the use of PowerPoints and podcasts to present the evaluation and commentary. What you'll want to do in the reflective memo is discuss examples like these with relation to the final project that you're working on. In other words, how has your evolving ability to present work affected the composition of your final project? Finally, as for what's meant by reflection, this one's actually a little bit more complicated than the name suggests. It involves thinking back on one's compositions, but specifically by doing reflective writing about them. One good example of reflecting on your work would be writing on the discussion boards about what you're working on. Another would be writing the reflective memo you're going to be working on this week. What you'll want to do in your reflective memo is discuss examples like these with regards to the final project that you're working on. In other words, how has your evolving ability to reflect affected your composition of this project? Remember that your final version of this memo will be attached to the page that has your final analytical report. Make sure there are no other attachments to this page, just the reflective memo, as you want this page to neatly present your greatest accomplishment of the semester, that is, the analytical report, along with your reflections of how much you've developed as a writer while composing it in its various stages.
As always, if you have questions, feel free to email me at cadam@ucla.edu. Also remember that you can come see me during my physical office hours in Humanities 218. My office hours are listed on my syllabus.
I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great week.